in a move that has sent shockwaves through the corridors of global power. The United States, under President Donald Trump, has dispatched a high-level delegation to Burkina Faso to meet with the revolutionary leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré. This audacious diplomatic gesture comes just weeks after the US shamelessly accused our brother, Captain Traoré, of using Burkina Faso's hard-won reclaimed gold reserves to protect his military government, daring to brand him a threat to their imperialist agenda. And now, in a stunning jaw-dropping twist, US General Michael Langley has backtracked on his slanderous, baseless claims, a retreat widely seen as a reluctant, grudging apology to the Burkinabe leader after Captain Traoré's fiery, uncompromising demand for accountability on an interview while he was in Russia. Let's unpack these shocking, electrifying details, expose the raw truth, and rally behind the revolution that's shaking the very foundations of Western dominance to their core. This week, on May 27, 2025, US Deputy Assistant Secretary for West Africa, Will Stevens, touched down in Ouagadougou, the vibrant, pulsating capital of Burkina Faso, carrying a message from President Donald Trump about building practical ties based on mutual respect. But hold on, my brothers and sisters, let's not be naive, let's not be fooled by their honeyed words. Just weeks ago, on April 3, 2025, General Michael Langley, head of US Africa Command, AFRICOM, stood before the US Senate Committee on Armed Services and arrogantly, maliciously accused Captain Traoré of misusing Burkina Faso's gold, resources rightfully wrested from the greedy, exploitative hands of Western mining corporations like Endeavour Mining, Barrick Gold, and others, to prop up what they insultingly called a junta regime. These were baseless, vicious lies, a calculated, sinister smear campaign designed to undermine Burkina Faso's revolutionary process, discredit its visionary leader, and justify sanctions, interventions, or even military action to maintain their chokehold on our wealth, our land, and our dignity. And now, after all that, they're knocking on our door seeking dialogue, waving a flag of peace. The audacity is staggering, the hypocrisy is breathtaking. Yet, in a powerful, defiant, and brilliant display of sovereignty, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the Lion of Burkina Faso, the heir to Thomas Sankara's immortal legacy, declined to meet Stevens, sending a crystal-clear, thunderous message. Africa will not be summoned like children to bow before Western powers, to grovel at their feet. Instead, Stevens was left to spend his evening with Burkina Faso's Foreign Minister, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré, discussing potential areas of cooperation. But make no mistake, my people, Captain Traoré's refusal to engage directly is a resounding, earth-shaking rejection of the West's tired, predictable playbook of control, manipulation, and neo-colonial domination. Let's set the stage, my brothers and sisters, and paint the full, vivid picture of this historic, transformative moment. The Sahel region, the beating heart of Africa, the cradle of our resilience and resistance, is in the midst of a revolutionary transformation, a glorious, unstoppable uprising against centuries of exploitation, oppression, and betrayal. Burkina Faso, alongside its steadfast, courageous brothers Mali and Niger, has boldly, unapologetically severed ties with neo-colonial powers like France and the United States, who for decades, centuries even, plundered our gold, our uranium, our oil, our cobalt, and our very dignity, propping up corrupt, spineless puppet regimes while our people languished in poverty, hunger, and despair. These three nations, under the visionary, fearless leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali, and General Abdourahmane Chiani of Niger, have forged the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a powerful, unshakable bloc dedicated to mutual defense, economic independence, and true, uncompromising sovereignty. They've expelled French troops, 4,300 soldiers sent packing from the Sahel since 2022, a humiliating retreat for the former colonial master. They've terminated exploitative, one-sided security pacts like the G5 Sahel, a Western-backed sham that delivered nothing but failure and excuses. And they've turned to new partners, Russia, China, Turkey, and others. Nations willing to engage on equal terms, to trade fairly, to build partnerships based on respect. not as colonial overlords dictating our fate from ivory towers in Paris and Washington. This is the Pan-African dream in action, a blazing, radiant fire of self-determination, a beacon of hope that's spreading across the continent, from the sands of the Sahara to the shores of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, and it's shaking the very foundations of Western dominance to their core. Now, let's dive deep into the US's sudden, shocking U-turn. Why, after slandering Captain Traoré, after trying to paint him as a corrupt, self-serving leader, are they now sending envoys to Burkina Faso, begging for a seat at our table? It's simple, my people. The West is trembling in fear, quaking at the power of a united Africa. For too long they've summoned African leaders to their fancy, condescending summits in Washington, Paris and Brussels, treating us like obedient children to be lectured, controlled and exploited like pupils in a colonial classroom. They've dictated terms, imposed structural adjustment programs through the IMF and World Bank, and looted our resources under the guise of development and partnership. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 37-year-old revolutionary, a soldier of the people, a disciple of our eternal hero Thomas Sankara, has flipped the script, rewritten the rules, and turned the tables on the imperialists. By nationalizing Burkina Faso's gold mines, ending the stranglehold of foreign corporations, and building a domestic refinery, the first in the nation's history, a monumental achievement. He's shown the world what true, people-centered leadership looks like. He's redirected our resources to agriculture, planting millions of acres to feed our people, to end the shame of hunger in a land of plenty. He's invested in education, building schools to empower our children, to break the chains of ignorance imposed by colonial legacies. He's bolstered security, arming and training the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, VDH, a people's militia, to reclaim territory from jihadists. 40% of Burkina Faso was once lost, but Traoré's leadership is winning it back, village by village, step by step. He's refused to bow, expelled French troops in 2023, and forged strategic partnerships with nations that respect our dignity, our sovereignty, our right to chart our own path. This move by the US, sending Will Stevens to Ouagadougou, is a sign of sheer, unmistakable desperation, a frantic, flailing attempt to regain a foothold in a region slipping from their grasp. They're begging at Africa's door because they see the tide turning, and they know deep in their hearts that when African leaders stand united, as Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger have done through the AES, the West has no choice but to kneel, to come crawling, to seek dialogue on our terms, in our lands, under our rules. Let's connect the dots, my people, and expose why this U-turn happened. Just weeks ago, on April 3, 2025, General Michael Langley, head of AFRICOM, stood before the US Senate and peddled vicious, baseless lies, claiming Captain Traoré was using Burkina Faso's gold reserves, estimated at a staggering $4 billion, finally reclaimed from the clutches of Western corporations, to protect his junta regime. This was a blatant, calculated attack, a propaganda stunt designed to turn Africans against our revolutionary leader, to sow division, to weaken our resolve, and to pave the way for sanctions, interventions, or even military action to maintain their grip on our wealth. But Africa rose up in righteous, unquenchable fury. From Ouagadougou to Nairobi, from Lagos to Accra, from Johannesburg to Dakar, African youths in the diaspora flooded the streets, the squares and social media, waving Burkina Faso and AES flags, chanting, "Hands off Burkina," and "African sovereignty now." Solidarity actions on April 30, 2025 echoed across the continent and beyond, a tidal wave of resistance that shook the world. In Bamako, Mali, thousands marched to the US Embassy, demanding respect. In Lagos, Nigeria, students burned effigies of Western leaders declaring "no more lies." In London and New York, the diaspora held vigils, raising fists and banners reading "Support Traoré." Hashtags like #SupportTraoré, #Burkina Rising, and #Africa United trended worldwide, amassing millions of posts, views and shares, a digital uprising that could not be ignored. In Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, youth activists shut down streets, chanting, "Traoré is our voice." In Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, university students rallied, proclaiming, The Sahel leads, we follow. The outpouring of support was a deafening, earth-shaking wake-up call to the West. Africa will no longer tolerate your lies, your propaganda, your attempts to divide and conquer us. And then, my brothers and sisters, a miracle unfolded, a victory for the ages. On May 27, 2025, while attending the African Chiefs of Defense Conference in Nairobi, General Michael Langley faced the fierce, unrelenting questioning of Kenya's citizen TV journalist Yvonne Okwara, a lioness of truth. Pressed to clarify his reckless, slanderous April 3rd claims, Langley backpedaled like a coward, calling his earlier statements a mere cautionary message, and even daring to praise Burkina Faso's progress, saying, "A lot of great things are going on to progress them forward. This was no accident, my people, no random change of heart. It was a direct, undeniable result of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's fearless, thunderous demand for a public apology, delivered with power and pride on the global stage in Moscow on May 9, 2025, during the 80th anniversary of Russia's victory over Nazi Germany." Flown in on a Russian plane, escorted by MiG-29 fighter jets, Captain Traoré stood shoulder to shoulder with President Vladimir Putin, declaring Africa's unalienable God-given right to self-determination, demanding respect for Burkina Faso, for the Sahel, for all of Africa. The pressure from African youths, the diaspora and our new allies, Russia, China, Turkey and others, forced Langley to eat his words, to swallow his lies. A monumental, historic victory for Pan-African unity and the power of our collective, unyielding voice. Why are African youths ready to defend Captain Ibrahim Traoré with their lives? Let's break it down, my people, and feel the fire in our hearts. When Langley dared to slander our brother, accusing him of misusing Burkina Faso's gold, the continent erupted in outrage, a volcano of righteous anger. From Monrovia to Mogadishu, from Dakar to Dar es Salaam, young people took to the streets, their hearts ablaze with pride, defiance, and hope. In Ouagadougou, thousands gathered at Place de la Révolution, the sacred ground of Sankara's legacy, chanting, "Long live Captain Traoré," and "Down with imperialism." In Abidjan, students burned effigies of Western leaders, demanding an end to neo-colonial meddling, shouting, "Africa for Africans." In Pretoria, South Africa, youth activists held all-night vigils, waving placards reading, "Traoré, our Sankara, and sovereignty now." In Kampala, Uganda, young people marched, singing songs of liberation, declaring, "Traoré lights the way." Why this fierce, unshakable loyalty? Because Captain Traoré is a wake-up call, a blazing, radiant light exposing the rot, the shame, the betrayal of corrupt African leaders who've sold out our continent for decades. These puppets, these traitors, have jetted off to Western capitals, hats in hand, begging for aid, signing deals with the IMF, World Bank, and multinational corporations, allowing our gold, our oil, our uranium, our cobalt, our diamonds to be looted while our people starve, our children die, our villages crumble. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré is different, my people, a leader of a new breed, a soldier of the people. Inspired by the revolutionary eternal legacy of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's martyred hero, Traoré has reclaimed our nation's gold reserves, a treasure worth billions, stolen for centuries by French, Canadian and American mining giants. He's building a gold refinery in Burkina Faso, the first in our history, a monumental, game-changing achievement to process our wealth locally, to break the chains of the imperialist extractive economy that's bled us dry. He's renegotiated mining contracts, demanding 60% shares for Burkinabe, prioritizing local skills development, training our youth to take charge of our mines, our future. He's redirected profits to agriculture, planting millions of acres of millet, sorghum and maize to feed our people, to end the disgrace of hunger in a land of fertile soil. He's built schools, hired teachers and empowered our children, breaking the colonial legacy of ignorance. He's strengthened security, arming and training the volunteers for the defense of the homeland, a people's militia, to reclaim territory from jihadists. 40% of Burkina Faso was once lost to violence, but Traoré's leadership is winning it back, village by village, step by step, with courage and resolve. This is the revolution our youth crave, a leader who puts Africa first, who dares to dream of a sovereign, self-reliant, prosperous future where our resources serve our people, not foreign corporations or distant capitals. And why are African youths making their leaders feel ashamed? Because Captain Traoré's courage, his vision, his defiance exposed the cowardice, the corruption, the betrayal of those who've sold out our continent. While presidents and prime ministers bow to the West, signing deals that leave our people in poverty, Traoré stands tall, a beacon of dignity, a mirror to their shame. In Nigeria, youths protest the government's oil deals with Shell and Exxon, chanting, "Be like Traoré, put Nigeria first." In Ghana, students rally against IMF loans that shackle the nation, demanding, "Follow Burkina's path, break the chains." In Kenya, young people march, decrying corruption, shouting, "Traoré shows the way, lead or leave." Across the continent, young people are ashamed of leaders who failed us, who've traded our future for personal wealth, luxury cars and Western approval. Sekou Ansamariam Dukali, a 22-year-old Liberian activist, travelled to Ouagadougou on April 30, 2025 and declared, "Captain Ibrahim Traoré represents hope for Africa, hope for black people, hope for all freedom fighters around the globe. Our leaders must learn from him or face our wrath, our rejection, our revolution." This is the fire of change, my people, and our youth are fanning the flames, ready to burn down the old order and build a new Africa. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has become a threat to the West, and here's why, my brothers and sisters. The US, the EU and their allies fear his influence, his Pan-Africanist vision, his bold, unapologetic alliances with Russia, China and Turkey, nations that respect our sovereignty, our right to choose our path. France, the former colonial master, has lost its grip on the Sahel, with 4,300 troops expelled from Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger since 2022. A humiliating defeat for a power that once raped our lands with impunity. The West's counter-terrorism efforts, backed by billions through initiatives like the Trans-Sahara Counter-Terrorism Partnership and the G5 Sahel, failed miserably, leaving violence to rage, displacing 2.5 million Burkinabe and allowing 40% of our land to slip from control. They call it economic security when they slap tariffs on our cocoa, our coffee, our gold, our cotton. But when the Sahel rejects exploitative deals, they scream, threat. Traoré's leadership is a model for Africa, proving we can solve our own problems, fight our own battles, build our own future without Western babysitters or colonial overlords. The AES, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, posted GDP growth rates of 5.494%, 3.751% and 9.869% in 2024 respectively, fueled by new partnerships, local control of resources, and a rejection of Western debt traps. This success terrifies the West, because if the Sahel can rise, so can Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Algeria, Egypt, and every nation ready to break free. Now, let's return to the US delegation's visit to Burkina Faso, and let's see through their deception. After their propaganda failed, after their lies about Captain Traoré misusing their gold collapsed under the weight of African unity, they're trying the peaceful approach, pretending to have good intentions, waving olive branches. Will Stevens met with Foreign Minister Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré, discussing strengthening trade relations and security cooperation. But we're not fooled, my people. Had their smear campaign succeeded, had Africans turned on Traoré like we tragically did Libya's Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, the West might have used ECOWAS as a puppet, a tool to launch military action, bombarding Burkina Faso to cripple its revolution, to topple its leader, to reinstall their puppets. Captain Traoré was wise, brilliant, strategic to snub Stevens, sending a powerful, unmistakable message. I don't trust you, and I never will. And he's right to be cautious, my brothers and sisters. When dining with the devil, you must use a long spoon, a very long spoon, because the US has a bloody, shameful history of destabilizing nations, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Haiti, under the guise of democracy, counter-terrorism, and human rights. Burkina Faso must stay vigilant, and Captain Traoré must protect himself, his people, and the revolution from these agents of chaos, these wolves in sheep's clothing. Why must Captain Traoré be careful of these recent moves? The West's playbook is predictable, sinister, and ruthless. First, they slander you, painting you as a dictator, a corrupt leader, a threat to stability. Then they smile, offering cooperation, partnerships, and aid. And behind the scenes, they plot regime change, fund opposition, arm rebels, impose sanctions, or launch covert operations. The US delegation's talk of trade and security sounds noble, sounds promising, but it's a Trojan horse, a desperate, cunning bid to regain influence in the Sahel, where their credibility lies in tatters, shredded by their own failures. Their counter-terrorism efforts failed, fueling resentment as violence displaced millions and left vast swaths of land ungoverned. But Traoré, leading the VDH, is reclaiming land village by village, while the AES builds a united, formidable front. The timing of Stephen's visit, weeks after Langley's accusations, days after his backtracking, is no coincidence, no act of goodwill. It's a calculated move to undermine the AES, to drive a wedge between Burkina Faso and its allies, to stop this revolutionary model from inspiring the rest of Africa, from igniting a continent-wide uprising. Captain Traoré must watch his back, trust his instincts, lean on the people's support, and guard this movement with every ounce of strength, every drop of wisdom. Above all, African youths are ready to defend Captain Ibrahim Traoré with their lives. From Liberia to South Africa, from Senegal to Ethiopia, from Ghana to Zimbabwe, young people see him as the embodiment of our dreams: dignity, self-reliance, black consciousness, and unapologetic pride. In Bamako, Mali, thousands marched, chanting, "Traoré, our brother, will fight for you." In Harare, Zimbabwe, students vowed, "We'll die before the West touches him." In Freetown, Sierra Leone, youth rallied, shouting, "Traoré, our shield, our sword." Social media is ablaze, a digital battlefield with #Pam Traoré, our hero, #Burkina Rising, and #Africa United trending daily, uniting Africans, African Americans, Black Britons, and the Caribbean diaspora in a global thunderous cry for freedom. Why this unshakable, passionate devotion? Because Traoré is our Sankara reborn, a leader who dares to seize our resources, build our nations, defy the West, and show us what's possible. He's exposed the cowardice of corrupt leaders, driving our youth to demand change, to reject the status quo. Sekou Ansamariam Dukali, the 22-year-old Liberian activist, spoke for millions when he travelled to Ouagadougou on April 30, 1825, and declared, "Captain Traoré is our hope. We'll stand with him, rifles in hand, hearts on fire, to defend this revolution, to protect our future." Our youth are done with leaders who bow, done with exploitation, done with shame, and ready to fight, to bleed, to die for a free, sovereign, united Africa. This, my people, is the power of unity, the strength of our collective will. When African leaders come together, as the AES has shown, the West can't summon us like children to their summits, can't dictate our fate from afar. Instead, they come to us begging, kneeling, seeking a seat at our table, trembling before our might. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has lit a fire across Africa, a blaze of sovereignty, pride and possibility that's spreading from the Sahel to every corner of the continent, from the deserts to the forests, from the mountains to the seas. The US delegation's visit, Langley's U-turn, and the youth's fierce, unwavering support are proof. The West is on its knees and Africa is rising, tall and proud. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are leading the charge, building a future where our gold, our oil, our land, our wealth benefit our people, not foreign corporations or distant powers. So let's stand firm, protect our captain, and build the free, dignified, sovereign Africa our ancestors dreamed of, fought for, died for. Either homeland or death, we will win.